So life actually has interesting aspects to begin with. It starts with one, it goes to two, and then it basically rolls over to three. And three for us is a very special space. Be it the Trimurtis, the Trishula, three worlds that we exist with, and three friends that go on adventure. So this is season three. The Changepreneurs, three of us, three very interesting individuals, starting this off at 3 o'clock on January 3rd. And with all the blessings of people who've kept us going for the last two seasons and will keep us inspired and entertained with their stories and with their life experiences throughout this series and the next episodes as well. So deep gratitude to Satish, our founder for Changepreneurs, and for all those who've put their stories and their footsteps in us making it to season three. And with that, it's a beautiful space to introduce a very interesting space. As soon as I looked at what the speaker or the guest for today had to offer, and I said, I am doing this podcast. And my co-conspirator here, she said, yes, Sunil, we should get this going. The moment I heard about Teach, my ears had actually started to, twitch and say, hey, this is something interesting. This is about ears, eyes, and a lot much more. So Teach is a non-profit. I'll give you a little bit about background about that. Transforming lives in a way that I've never heard before, and in a way that it caters to a population in India across the world, which has not maybe been the center point of the spotlight for a lot of uh, issues and stuff that need to be spotlighted. So I think I've just about piqued your curiosity enough. So welcome, Aman. Welcome to this particular lovely conversation with us at Changepreneurs. And it's a joy, it's an honor to have somebody like you jump in, and the story that you bring with yourself is something that's extraordinary, and in a way that it's very deeply moving. You shared with us that more than 1 crore children can be the direct beneficiaries of what each intends to bring and is already bringing to the ecosystem as such. So I would leave the introduction of yours to you. I know this is slightly out of the usual that we are doing. But then what you are doing is as slightly out of the usual as it gets. So do take over and share an introduction.
I could see little anxious, frowning faces, Sunil and Sarish, where I'm sure you are waiting to hear me. And imagine
Yes.
nearly 1 crore children are waiting to hear us or hear their mother's voice. So nearly since their birth. And even if they're not able to hear, yet they are smiling. That's the power that they bring in. That's the strength they bring in our country. And nearly 6.3 million people are with this disability in our country.
In our country.
Hello, everyone. My name is Aman Sharma. I head this organization called Teach. Teach is an acronym for Training and Educational Center for Hearing Impaired. Now, giving a quick background and quick reflection. Now, imagine when we were young or we have our own children, and then when they were born, we were so happy to wait for them to say the first word, mama, dada, daddy, papa. But for them, these parents, they've been waiting, but they could not hear because the child could not hear since birth. And as they start growing, the family got into a stigma, and parents still they say ये क्या हो गया मेरे साथ, कोई पिछले जन्म का पाप तो नहीं है. And रिश्तेदार कोसते हैं. They tell them, these children, ये बच्चे क्या है, ज्यादा से ज्यादा गाय भैंस की तरह है, भेड़ बकरी की तरह है, सिर्फ खाते और कुछ नहीं करते. And imagine these parents going through these trauma, and as child progresses and when they wait for the schooling age, till date, we talk about schooling. When I was school and when I was in my schooling, or when my child is in today's schooling, and anyone who's listening me, when we were in schooling, did we had any peer or classmate who was deaf and hard of hearing? I'm sure no. The reason because we talk about inclusion, but they're still on papers, nothing on practice. I'll tell you a fact. There's 40,000 colleges, 1,500 plus universities, less than 1% are only accessible for them. They can't go anywhere. And that is where we cannot find them in any corporate houses where we have worked on, any progressive jobs that they are working on. And 85% and above of them are sitting at home doing nothing. So when we call up about Atmanirbhar Bharat, I think this community with has to be Atma independent.
Yeah.
And that is what Teach has been doing. Uh, Giving my quick background, Sunil and Shirish, is a decade I have spent into corporate, worked into sectors like investment banking and finance and risk. I think there was one opportunity, and I'll share a story around it. And this was just at the age of 24, 25, where my aspiration was to become a managing director in where I was working. I was used to work in JP Morgan. And at that moment, one Saturday morning, a phone call came into one of my friends. And his name is Dipesh, who was working with me. And the call came in to inquire that can you come in to volunteer as teachers on Saturdays? And at that moment, I said, "Oh, we can go." Because Friday to Saturday, Monday to Friday, we were working, and Friday evening we were partying, and Saturday we were doing nothing. So let us put our Saturday to put better use, and we agreed to that. So Deepesh and me, we went to that school, and as we went, this was in Mumbai, and as we went to the school in Mumbai, we got into the premises. It was so quiet. Usually जब हम स्कूल जाते हैं हमें पता है बच्चों की चहल पहल होती है. Yeah. But in that particular school, there was so much of silence. And we were like, are we at the right place? Is that where we should be? At that moment, we just again called that volunteer coordinator that here we are we at the right place? He said, why don't you come upstairs? And then we started going upstairs. Suddenly, I saw a bunch of students coming downstairs. I still remember they were wearing a yellow color t-shirt and a blue color pant, and they were all using sign language. I got scared. Then I still remember that monster.com ad used to come, caught in a wrong job. It reminded me that I have something yes to something that I cannot do. And faked my composure, went into the classroom with the prejudice that I will say no at the end. That was my mind. As the class began, I saw a teacher that was teaching, and she was teaching verbally. And at that moment, I realized that, okay, I could do this. This is doable. But as soon as the teacher left, I asked that guy, volunteer coordinator, that is this how I have to teach? And he signed to the student. Did you all understood? And all were like, no. And again, I panicked. I said, I don't know this language. How would I teach that? And they requested that exams are due. They are coming very nearby. Can you attempt? And in corporate, we've always been taught on creating PowerPoint presentation, using training decks and so on. So I thought, let me try. But if I am not able to do justice, I will quit. I will, because it's a noble job. It's a very responsible job. I cannot play with their careers or life. And the journey began there and onwards. So from that journey, as we began, and because on the parallel side, my aspiration was still to become a managing director in JP Morgan. So I enrolled myself for an MBA program from Mumbai in RC Monji, Executive One, which was again on Saturday. So Saturday morning used to teach, Saturday afternoon and Sunday full day was my college. But I'll admit on this podcast, and I do not want to upset any professors, but I'll still be very honest with them that there were certain subjects that I was boring for me. But I had paid a very heavy fees, so I cannot bunk the college. So actually, I started sitting on the last bench and started making notes, started making content, and started learning sign language through YouTube. So the next Saturday, when I go back to the classroom, I'll deliver better. And this exercise instilled confidence in me. But two, I would say, incidents or experience that actually shifted my mindset, provoked me to think differently. One was in the same school. And usually when you go to any special schools, so government has made special schools because they identify that private schools, they can't go anywhere. So there should be some other alternate system. And the alternate system is special schools for every disability. But the speciality is the subjects and the teachers are very different. When I peeped into the classroom, the student teacher ratio is 7:1. One teacher, seven students. And you can easily identify the genders, the children studying, how many attendance, and so on. And I saw a very tall boy sitting into the class. And I was 25. The curious boy inside me asked that teacher, "Ma'am, what's his age?" And she said, "So he's 14-year-old." And the class was fourth grade. When I was in 14, I was eighth grade at a 14-year-old age. Imagine that boy going into his building, chawl, wherever he stays, and then looking at the other children who can hear and speak, or they are at eighth grade, and because I can't hear and speak, or I can't hear, I am deaf, and that is why I am in fourth grade. So much of inferiority complex, anger, self disciplining self, or from the esteem standpoint. So going through so much of mental, emotional complexities, and that was very difficult for me to absorb at that moment. And another at a certain period, an incident happened where I study. I used to do my MBA. Within 1 kilometer, there were 4 or 5 colleges. Nearly 1 lakh children used to study, but not a single deaf doing MBA with me. Why? The sudden thought came into my classroom, and at that moment, I called Tipesh because he was doing his MBA. His aspiration was to become a manager as well with me, and we are childhood friends. He said, "I don't have anyone in KJ Somaya where I'm doing my masters with." I asked him, "Why? Where are they then? Who are we teaching on Saturday? What are they actually doing post their schooling? What's happening?" And at that moment, we made this as a project, as an MBA project, because I believe students को थोड़ा lightly लिया जाता है. So made this an MBA project and went to all the special schools just to understand what they do. And then these data came up that subjects like English, math, science, they're still absent, not been taught to them. And and colleges are not accessible. There's no data. If I will ask anyone, few or people hearing me, at this point of time, if you Google it, that what is the average population of the world with disability, it will come as 16%. But in India, it will only show 2.21% because I come a finance background. There's no data, there's no accountability. And that is where things have been. And that shifted my journey from investment banking to starting teach. So this is where the journey has been, Sunil and Shirish.
Wow. And then I said, it is a privilege to have you as a first guest. And uh, as you were speaking, so many things just sort of hit differently, because even while we were studying, I don't think in any of the schools and colleges in all the spaces my friends also studied in, we never had even this thought saying, okay, is this education possible access for anybody else who's hard of hearing? We've never had that. We've never seen that. But just because we've not seen that, it does not mean that it does not exist. But our worlds are so focused on that. But when you put that question saying, where are they studying and what happens after that, that was a very hard question for me also to process, to saying, hey, oh, I've never thought about this in all of my life until now.
I think imagine we have been so much hard coded actually. So if I ask anyone of you to visualize a child, just close your eyes and visualize a child, we automatically will visualize a child without disability. But the child with disability is also actually a child.
Correct.
But so much of the in exclusivity has actually been ingrained within us that we have become little exclusive by nature, not able to understand or go deeper when it comes to the societal structure where other people along with us are also residing. So this has been the shift that I've been talking about.
Inclusion is a concept, like you said, on paper it exists, but in terms of its actual implementation, policy, accountability, I think there's a lot needs to be done. And uh, really, 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 thanks to you and your team to take teach forward and bring the this population and these people who have not been included into this space to get into education, get into formal jobs, and then change their ecosystem for a big space, and not just them, also the parents that come alongside.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. As you were saying, Aman, and followed by Sunil, what really I was thinking was that how much we take all that we've got taken as granted, rather. the ability to hear, to see, to speak. We don't even think about people who are not blessed with these senses. So one call that changed your whole pathway of life, investment banker, risk taking to a different path. But I'm very curious, was it an accidental call, or was it you had already thought of volunteering for this kind of work? How did it just actually, what are the chain of events that led to that particular call?
So the whole thing started through volunteering. And then as my interest went on to teach these children, I started from hopping to one school, taking an additional school along with my job. So that interest got deeper and deeper. But with these two incidents, two thoughts that came up. Number one, which is least important, is biologically I am fit. I have all my senses. It is least important. The most important is that I had an access to ecosystem. We all, right? When we were born, medical system was there. As we started progressing towards the age, right, appropriate schooling system was there, then the college, and then whatever we want to do. Today, we want to do something. We had an ecosystem. But for them, the ecosystem is absent. So it is not their talent or not their ability. It is the absence of ecosystem which is limiting them to do what they wish to do or what they deserve. And this thought actually, Shirish, led me to an idea that we should actually teach them after 10th grade. Because there are schools, there's nothing happening on higher education. And I approached the few of the schools that we can help to take this, because we are MBA grads, been into the corporate, 11, 12, BCom, we can do that. But I said, आप अपना संभाल अपने कीजिए सर, हम नहीं करेंगे. And they gave me a light that we should do on our own. And that is where the journey of Teach started. But it took us 2 years or 1.5 year close to where, because imagine trying to do something which you have never done, number one. And second, doing something in expensive city like Mumbai, finding a premise to start off something. I still remember days when we were starting off and we were in search of a classroom. And in Mumbai, you would need for 1 hour, they were like 500 rupees per hour. We were like, it's a non-commercial. They might not be able to pay this much of expenditure or amount. The parents will not be able to bear that. And Dipesh and myself, we were a single earner of a family. So we have to manage our own family as well. So at that point of time, we started searching out for spaces. And I remember we were headstrong that we have to start. I took permission from my building society, and I was ready. I will start from my home, but we will start no matter what, because this is where once you kick off, and then things will progress. That's the philosophy of that I carry. And suddenly, we met someone at the University of Mumbai. So he was at that moment he was the assistant director of distance and open learning department. And when we met him, he said, "Why don't you try to do something in our premises of University of Mumbai?" And it's a distance learning department. 3 classrooms are there. No students comes in. They come only on an annual basis for examination. The rest of the days it's vacant. But you'll have to go through the process. And the process was bureaucratic. And with never ending, but the director was, and the assistant director, they on their own, at the end, they said that you take this premises, will support you. And they gave that classroom for free. So we got the classroom for that to free in Mumbai, that to a very central area of Mumbai. Now we needed a teacher and certain students to start off. So we called that volunteer coordinator and we called him that, do you want to do a better job? And we'll pay you as much as you are earning today. And but join us, this is a great opportunity. And he willingly joined us. So now we got the 2 things after the 3. But we needed the most important, that is the students. Because since I was teaching into multiple school, I had met a certain set of parents and the students, and they were studying in 10th grade. And I had asked them if I am trying to do something for their higher education. I am not a special educator and so on, which is termed into the education sector, but we will thoroughly try to do something for the children. They trusted me. They trusted us. And I said, let us meet, because we will work to teach your children ahead. And I still remember their words is that, sir, आप भगवान बन के हमारे लिए आए हो. मैंने ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. I am experimenting, but we will do our best to teach your children ahead. And but only 3 might not do. We need more. तो वो कहते हैं कि आप उसकी चिंता मत करो सर. So those 3 parents got 20 parents children more. So we started with a batch of in 2016 with 23 children, one classroom, one teacher. And in 9.5 years of our journey, we are from that one classroom, we are into 3 cities in Mumbai, Pune, and Delhi. From the 23 students, we have touched 650 students. 100 students have been graduated, 500 plus students are enrolled today, are studying today. And from that one teacher, we are an 80-member team. So that's the journey Shirish has been from the inception.
Wow. And so, in terms of your higher education, so it starts beyond 10th itself, right? So that's how does the schooling system work? So what do they learn, and like how do you transition out from that?
So recently, and there was quite a debate that when Narayan Murthy said the 70 hours work week, L&T said, chairman said 90-hour work week. And then at the end, certain time people are still thinking and a little skeptical that with AI and ML will take away our job. With these kind of conversations, which is happening at one end, on the other end, they are struggling to introduce subject like English, mathematics, science in the school. That's the disparity. That's the length that extreme that these children are. When we talk about the schooling, subjects like sari bordering, embroidery, housekeeping, home science, and those are being introduced or still being taught to them. Still very away from the mainstream formal education. And I see this also a policy gap, Sunil, is where all these schools, the mainstream schools, the colleges, they come under Ministry of Education and the UGC. But the special school system for any disability, they still come under social welfare. So, and this is not a welfare business. It's a right to educate. So this is a severe policy gap that at a certain stage, I'm sure, this should be addressed.
So the learning is not in a way in terms of if I have to compare somebody who is not hard of hearing and somebody who's hard of hearing, then what they learn at say 10th standard space is completely off tangents.
Yeah, imagine when we take our baseline assessment when they come to our admission in any of our campuses, student who has passed on 10th grade exam. Yeah. When we take their English or mathematics assessment, the level of knowledge is even less than a first grader. The 18-year-old child is learning A for apple, B for ball in a campus with 6 years staying in a campus. So they spend 6 years with us. And within the 6 years, we make them ready to take up corporate or formal jobs, which is very progressive in nature.
And how does it work? So like somebody enrolls to your campus, then you said 6 years. So what happens in those 6 years?
So now very simply, I'll just answer this. So when we all were fresh graduates and as you try to remember the first interview. So the HR have asked us 3 questions. Are you even a graduate? If yes, then you can apply. So the first thing that Teach does in 6 years is we make them graduate. Now, even though it looks like it's a check in the box, imagine a child who has never learned English will be appearing for 12th boards, will be appearing for a BCom examination, learning subjects like economics, law, and so on in English. So teaching academics along parallel with English language goes hand in hand. So that they can learn and become a graduate. And in last 4 years or 5 years of cycle of graduation, 100% result we've been producing. The second aspect is the second question HR has asked us, what skill do you possess? What skill do you bring on the table? And we know that recent economic time survey came in that 51% of graduates in our country are not even employable. The reason because the academic institutions are thorough in academics, were failing in skilling. The students have not been actually trained as relevant to the market or the demand. So now, since we came from a corporate, we know that they have to be always aligned to the market. What we did is we introduced the skilling as another curriculum, which is embedded into their overall curriculum. Every child in Teach has an option to go through any particular domain based on his or her interest. Now, if Sunil, you may think, oh, I am very creative, But so you can take up graphic design or multimedia designer as a course. And from basic sketching to learning Photoshop with AI, Figma, Illustrator, you become an expert into that domain.
Mm.
Sirish may say, oh, I love numbers. And so he has an option to do core accounting or data analytics or both. We're learning accounting. And so when we talk about accounting, we've actually collaborated with Zoho, where in the industry we've partnered and the Zoho books and Zoho tools are being taught to these children and they
Mm.
become expert into accounting domain.
Wow.
Similarly, when it comes to data analytics, they've learned from basic Excel to actually learning Power BI and Python is where they become expert into that. So every student is becoming expert of one single domain so that they can answer the second question of the HR, that this is the skill I bring on the table. And the third thing the HR has always asked us, are you flexible? Can you work in team? Will you be able to take up shifts? So to check up on the resiliency. I imagine I'm talking about children who have never been a, met their relatives in the family functions with the stigma. Parents had that stigma that I don't want to introduce my child who can't hear and speak, is a deaf. I don't want to introduce. Imagine that child boy I was talking about who was a 14-year-old but still in fourth grade with so much anxiety and inferiority complex within him. Now, for them, we spend 300 hours per year per child to build a resilient personality so that they can face the world and be themselves inclusive and enable the world to become inclusive as well. They advocate about inclusion along with us in the other way. And that is where building resilient character is the third element. So from graduation to
Graduation.
building domain expertise to building resilient character is become one part of Teach model. And this model, every student of Teach goes through this model at the end of their till the end of the course. And 90% of them, when they graduate, get a campus placements. So
Wow.
that's the camp placement rate that with an average salary today is around 3 lakh rupees per annum. I still believe, and with my team, we, we have we have to move our benchmark up. There's a miles to go. But this is where the current 9 years journey has been.
Wow,
Yeah,
that is
Aman.
fantastic.
So a lot of challenge there. 15 years covered in what, 6 years? That's what I
Correct.
hear. And well, coming to the other part of the challenge, the first thing is, what are the challenges you face when you try to get these kids placed with the corporates, with the institutions?
I think there were 2, 3 challenges, very severe challenges that we got it. Now, our conversion rate of corporates to get them on board is around 2%. Is a conversion rate. So if I'm meeting 100 companies, it's only 2 will be ready. What I have experienced here is it's a ladder. It's a pyramid. There are 2 aspects to look at it, but it's a pyramid. Now, when people talk about DNI, we know on LinkedIn, it's a buzzword that goes on DNI. And suddenly people starts looking at, oh, how many women I have in my team. Then they look at the first pyramid is a gender overall. Then they look at the disability. And within the disability, then there's another pyramid that they look up to. How can we easily include any other particular disability? And that's how they start getting the other disabilities included into the workforce. So it could be while creating a ramp, with creating infrastructure, getting locomotor people with disabilities within the system. Then comes people with adding systems like JAWS, screen readers. Then comes the people with who can't see, blind people, vision impaired into the system. And then it comes to the deaf and hard of hearing. And I have not even reached a stage of neurodiversity. So imagine there's a pyramid and each pyramid have gone through its own challenge. So we reach out to the organization who have actually crossed that pyramid, number one, or who is ready to take a leap. And it's only 2% whom we are able to identify. So that is one challenge actually that we face. Second aspect is identifying what could be done. So because there's no benchmarking in terms of what are the capabilities that they can get into a system. So we engage with the corporates into sensitizing them, build their capacity, identify job roles so that they can get into the particular job roles. But the challenge here is pay what it takes, the pay equity. Sometimes I keep advocating that treat them, when we talk about training them with equity, it is about look at the talent, not the disability. Look at the ability, not the disability. So this is the second thing that I keep advocating, and we've got few organizations who actually stood with us, so companies who have actually stood with us in actually taking this agenda forward. So these are two major challenges series that from is getting organization on board into getting them hired, and second is from the pay equity standpoint.
And what about the challenge of them getting uh, uh, involved in the ecosystem? Like, how do they understand what they need to do, the day-to-day conversations? So how is that challenge met for these
So
people?
what we have done is we have created a post-placement support. Now we know that everyone wants to learn. It is nothing like nobody wants. There's a sense of intention, but you need a sense of the know-how to do it. That is where the lack is. So we have created a model on post-placement support where for a whole year we train people working in the organization, employees, the hiring team on sign language. We train them use how to use technology, certain accessible methods to communicate with them. And I also believe what I've seen, what has worked best is a natural learning. So sign language is actually very primitive. When we were kid, when we were not speaking, we were using sign language. How our parents used to understand us because we were using gestures, expression, and sign language. Until today, if you want to say that you want to eat or drink, so this is the basic common sense science that we use it. So what I have seen is when our students have got into these organizations, they've actually transformed the team along with what is the functional training that we are doing into where the workspace that they can actually communicate easily. Because as humans, nobody can restrict us to communicate. We want to communicate. So that enables that actual progression has enabled them to become more accessible into the system as well. But primarily, building teams capacity, leveraging technology are two main drivers into, and monitoring there or reviewing on a quarterly basis enable us to understand are we in the right direction or not.
So building all this ecosystem for the students, for the children, how does the financials work actually?
But it's a very difficult or tricky question because not 99% of these families or parents comes from with a very low economic background, and the cost per child is 1.12 lakh rupees per annum. So that is what we are spending 1,20,000 rupees per annum per child. Because now when we benchmark with any without disability, imagine for transforming a child's future, we'll have to work on the English language. We'll have to work on the skilling, education, the mental health, and then the placement support. So if any of us missing, if I'm not able to teach English, there's no transformation happening, no placement is happening, no academics, no placement. So that is why we are spending 1.2 lakh rupees per annum per child. And unfortunately, it's what I keep telling the stakeholders is I am expert doing ghate ka danda. The reason of not having a higher education institution for the deaf and hard of hearing in our country is not about being not aware. There's one more reason to it is this is a non-commercial, and unfortunate education in our country has become a commercial. So since it's a non-commercial segment, there is no activity of enterprises in this field itself, and which is consuming, is this capital consuming in itself. So here we are dependent on CSR donors, but I will say that less than 1% of the total CSR is attributed to projects into disability, into fields in disability. 99% is attributed without disability and other projects or other sectors, but within the disability sector, it's less than 1% of the total CSR in the country. So it's a daily, it has become my full time, where I started as a teaching. Today, actually, I'm raising funds on a full time basis. So that's how things has been translated as we scale. But yeah, I think with this podcast, I would personally want to engage organizations, individuals who want to come along, sponsor some children, sponsor a campus, partner with us. And the best thing that the philosophy of Teach has been, as I personally believe, it is not the money that matters. It's still that it will still be a transactional thing. Today, one can support, tomorrow it will end. I will certainly give certain examples of certain organizations like with Cipla, with Kotak Bank, with one of the other family in Dubai. So they all started with funding us, yeah, as an organizations. But today, 6 to 7 people, students are working in these organizations. There was a family, Indian family based in Dubai, and they are supporting us. And we said, why don't you get two of our students get a global placement? My vision is that they should get placements out of country as well. Want the community to believe themselves that they can do beyond. And they agreed. And two of them are today fully settled, earning more than 15, 20 lakh rupees an annum in Dubai. So that is where going more holistic, going more deeper is something that we are looking for.
Wow. I think it's a crazy success story in terms of the people funding it, the students receiving it, and then also one plus in terms of getting a job in that place, and transforms uh, the journey that you also have had as an organization, their internal journey, and I think also it sensitizes the organizations that you know what, it's a knock on the door to them saying there are people with beautiful talent who would also add value to the organization and make the organization a more kinder organization, because they are now not just looking at one particular scope in terms of diversity. There's actual diversity being brought into this in multiple scales. So that's the thing for the organizations, for the individuals to work through. And say, for example, individually, if somebody wants to support, what's the what's it like? You know, how do we get in touch?
So I think there are two aspects to it. One is with the time, which is very critical. Someone can actually come as volunteer, take up share certain expertise that they carry, which can be virtual and which can be physically in these three campuses in Mumbai, Pune, Delhi, or can coach certain set of students, can mentor certain set of students. So those are certain where time can be involved, and it's a big thing because being consistent with time is something. And imagine these started through volunteering, so one can do much more bigger things through giving time. Second aspect is sponsoring certain set of children, certain girls that come from. Now, when we talk about girls, where I say we as a nation we know that girl children are still treated as liability. Imagine a girl with disability is underground when it comes to the oral access and this independence that they deserve. So sponsoring certain girls, sponsoring certain children who come from very economically challenged background, those can someone that as an individual can someone participate.
So they can directly reach out to you and take the conversation forward.
Yes.
And I think maybe I would like to try my hand at that in terms of volunteering for time. So I've never done this before, so it's like your first step to doing something in this sector. Maybe this is also my step to doing something around that. Um,
Thank
can
you so much.
share? Oh, yeah, most welcome. So, can you share of a few success stories of what each has been able to do? So, I remember one where you said one of them is settled in the US, and you know you had a space where we could bring him on the podcast sometime a little later.
Correct.
So,
Well, I think there are many. I will share one or few of them. I still remember. I There was first time a student. Now his father was a rickshaw driver in Mumbai, and this is a year. This is also this was a self reflection for me also. Now this was year 2021. We were out of COVID. 2019 actually. Sorry, 2019. This was a year, and I was at my personal site. We were searching home. Me and my spouse were searching home for us, my personal site. But at this side, I was invited at this family. Their parents said, "Sir, aap aao na ghar par." And I said, "Okay, I'll come." I went with them to their home, and in Mumbai, Chawl, it was less than 100 square feet, 70 square feet. That was a home. Self reflection was at one end. I was searching. Oh, I should have a balcony. I should have this and that. And here, the child whom I am teaching is living here. And the parent and the child sat there, been there for an hour and two, had lunch and so on, and then I left. So this boy got an opportunity for as an intern into an HR at India First Life Insurance. This was in Nesco in Koregaon. I went with the child. Parents stood there for 2-3 hours at the gate, the rickshaw. They will wait for my child to come or after the interview and so on. And I still remember the expression of this boy. He was like, "Is this such a big lift, such a golden color?" And he was so much in awe looking at that. itni badi kaanch ki building. And I remembered my age, when I was 20-year-old, got into that, this was my office. And that was a similar expression. And I was like, wow. And this boy started his journey and today is fully settled in Sharjah, and in February about to get married, and it was next month, and marriage plan is all set, and with a girl whom she is also a teach student, and his father is a CISF soldier, and
Oh.
he used, I remember when for his posting he used to take our letters from us, so that, sir, please hold on my posting, I want to still educate my girl child. So he was so determined on his that I should hold on my posting. And we supported, and the CISF supported him. And today, this girl is working into Rosary Biotech into HR and successfully working. Both of them are successfully working from last 4 years and now about to get married, happy to lead their own life from here. So this is something which I talk about, that it's not just about the inclusion, it is about sustaining that inclusion. It's about progressing through that inclusion. And that is what these stories have actually has inspired us and other students to actually get into do more and go beyond for them and itself.
Yeah. Aman, one thing just came to my mind when you were talking about the success stories. So, what have you what kind of feedback have you got about the work ethics of these children or these students when to go and work in the corporate? These days, I think everybody in the corporate is so worried about Gen Zs and Alpha and whatever Zen's coming in and their work culture. But what about these students? What kind of work culture are they bringing in?
So one is, I see one is Gen Z's across. These are also Gen Z. But the best part is they go through a rigorous training in campuses where they are built to take up more, be more aspirational by nature, and so on. So what the feedback that we have received is, no, one of few of us will immediately get disturbed with the ting or ping of the iPhone or the phone, right? But they are so much focused into their numbers, so much focused into their data, so much focused into their work that they do not get easily disturbed. So they are able to be more productive than any of us. Second is what they largely bring on the table is the sense of empathy. We are losing out with this AI and ML and so on coming in, the sense of empathy around the globe. What they are, and this is what I keep advocating to the organization, you will be able to increase your empathy index within the firm when they will be working with you. Because we are not driven by patience. We are driven by little impatience. We are somewhere we need quick results. But results doesn't come fortnight. No? It takes time. And this is what they train us or build that culture of empathy into their team that they work on in the organization that do on. And third, since they are expert of that single domain, so they are highly productive on that because they bring that similar talent without hearing or speaking on the table, but the productivity remains as high as possible. And I'll say, it was just recently we're doing a quick check on our attrition rate or retention rate. Last 3 years, our attrition rate is only 8%. 92% students from last 3 years are consecutively working into the organization with an average increment of around 11% year on year, which is a market increment that they're getting.
One more important parameter, Aman, since you worked in corporates and we also is that what kind of hunger for success a person has got? What is your experience has been for the last 9 years that you've been associated with these children?
So they do have a hunger to success. They want to prove themselves. They keep signing that we want. This is a sign for hearing, and this is a sign for equal. So we want to be equal with the hearing.
Yes.
So that's the sign they do, and we keep telling them maybe one is equal. At certain stage, you should be above as well with the certain hearing. And when you're studying, when you're doing your graduation, learning certain skilling, learning certain certificate, you're already above X percentage of the hearing students. So with the overall healthy, from the healthy competence standpoint, is where there is a sense of hunger for them to prove enough for their families. So what we do, Shirish, in our campuses, and being a non-profit, I'll just share this. This is again a philosophy of teach, and from day one, and it gradually we progressed on that. All our campuses are very accessibly, technologically very much assistive, and when we look at the NGOs, we come with it could be very dark, it could be a little into, but where we have positioned ourselves into premium institutions. In fact, our vision is to become a world premier education institution, though non-commercial, but still a world premier education institution for the deaf and hard of hearing. Now, I was sitting in a parents' meeting, and suddenly, and this was a very new batch that came in after 10th. They spent a 6 month. The boys spent a 6 months, and parents tell me, sir, ये बच्चा अभी बोलता है घर पर कि अभी हम लोग गरीब नहीं है. So this is a sense of feeling that we want to give it to them. The feeling is this poverty or this situation that you are in is temporary. Spend 6 years here. We guarantee that if you spend 6 years here in a manner that is your wish to, you will be out of poverty or this economic situation. That's a guarantee that I personally want to give to all these children who wants to study in teaching. So this is where the whole narrative is about the hunger, and it starts, since it's a organizational hunger to do more, it's transcend to the students as well, and then they are able to perform in these organizations.
And how about the parents? How has their mindset shifted after getting into teach and like getting the kids into teach?
I think they have been amazing. Parents have been where I still remember very early days of where they were clueless that what would happen. They were forcing their child that she should get into any blue collar job after 10th grade or as soon as the schooling is done, even pass or fail. Today, every parent wants to educate the child. In these, what the revolution that we could bring in Mumbai particularly, because we spent 9 years in Mumbai, Pune and Delhi is still younger. Pune started a year ago, Delhi started 3 years ago. But these particularly when I talk about Mumbai, is now every child wants to study. Every parent wants their child to get that convocation into that convocation ceremony with one hand a degree and another hand an offer letter. So this is what the aspiration of parents has been. And I love that where parents push us, that where they tell us that if this can be added, if that can be done, can we do a government course? Can we do this for us? And this is what we want from parents, equal participation. And one of the best thing that we do, apart from any education, because this is again we have learned from the corporate system, is a skip level. So every year, twice, 500 parents divided by different campuses. So imagine 300 parents of Mumbai into two batches, 150 plus. They do a skip level with all the trustees. Nobody involved. It's 2 times directly with us. The trust board directly sit with the parents to identify what is happening right, what is not happening in the way that it has to happen, and those corrective actions are made for the parents. So that is where the time quotient is critical when it comes to from the leadership standpoint as well from teaching.
That's a very interesting concept. So you seem to have brought the right mix of the corporate into the NGO sector. I have a question, and more so we've until now talked about teach as a concept, teach as a ecosystem. But if you were to look at yourself maybe 15 years back, the Aman 15 years back, so possibly 2011 to now say 2026, how have you changed?
I think my whole perception towards life has changed. What I have learned with these children is I used to crib, and sometimes I keep telling my peers, my friends, that sometimes we crib around very small, petty things in life not happening. Imagine they cannot hear and speak. They are living their life as independent as they want based on their thing. So learning that still we have things. So it's about emotional resilience, mental resilience, and that is what I'm actually I could learn from these students. It's not about me teaching them from last 9 years. Parallelly, they have made me a person who can actually absorb more of the emotional aspect to understand life deeper. How with limited means, any person or a family can still come out of the whole journey from the poverty to live an independent life. So this is going beyond is what something I could learn in that 15 years of if we take back from the 2011 to 2025, 26.
And you also shared your wife is also now involved. I think your son, not your next is also the next generation is also involved in the space.
Correct.
So you also integrated this into it's now a family. Can't say business, but it is now a family business to get teach forward.
Yeah, so I think our long-term vision is within next 10 years, 2035, we want to set up a university for the deaf and hard of hearing students. Now that's a very a project that is a scaled project. And my wife being a chartered accountant, and she has been associated before we being together. She was already with part of Teach because I met her at JP Morgan, and that's where I said, "You are a chartered accountant. You will handle our finance better." Because at the end, see, the philosophy is ये किसी और के बच्चे हैं. So these are all, what whom we are dealing with is not my own child, it's others' child. And the money that I am dealing with is someone else hard-earned money. So there is two critical things, and we are very clear on this too. So this is very highly responsible job that we are into, and that is where we thought is this is the time has come after a decade, spending a decade. She spent a decade into JP Morgan and in finance. Is spent the next decade, and so with here full time. And it's though it sounds like a risk, but I think worth taking it. It's one life, and though and our child is 5.5. So if we are able to mellow down his aspiration from the uh, personal space or from the overall lifestyle aspect of it, and still move ahead, because I was grown up with limited lifestyle, and I think he can also grow up with a limited lifestyle. That will be easier for us rather than me waiting. We could have waited for a right time to get her in, and she would have been kind of 10-year or 12-year old, and that moment it would have been difficult for us to convince him. So that thought came in, and then we took a decision that let's do it together full time.
Wow, man, fantastic thought. And I think I'll leave the next question to Shirish because I have a few more. But
No, I was listening to the higher vision of setting up a university in next 10 years. What are the challenges you foresee coming your way, and what is the support that you think you would be needing from government or from society at large to overcome those challenges?
I think the first challenge will be in next 10 years. There will be a few other challenges that will come in. One is how can we scale our placements? I particularly see is where every campus is now. It was the graduation and the placement was happening only limited to Mumbai campus. In coming years, it will be Delhi and Pune as well. So how can we scale up our advocacy and get more organizations? So improve the 2% conversion rate to at least 20, 30, 40%, getting more and more organization participating in getting them opportunities is something that I particularly see. And from the government standpoint, I will say that now Karnataka government has rolled out something is where the 5% reservation for people with disabilities into private companies as well. They are planning to roll this up. So can we have certain reservations, but based on merit, not just a reservation, for certain set of disabilities into private and public. So there's a 1% reservation in public organizations for the deaf and hard of hearing. One is that. Second challenge, what I see is at teach level, we might be able to take only 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 children on a large scale basis. But there are crore plus children. So what would happen to them? So how can, from the government standpoint, what we are trying to do is we have created a teacher training course. And now we are working with the government to get it certified. So once we are able to certify the course, what I personally believe is how can we engage more and more universities and colleges to participate and get their faculties trained to and their systems to accessible to get deaf and hard of hearing students into any of the colleges or universities. So reducing one is building the ecosystem in a way where any student can get into any other colleges or university. So this is where I see. So there's a one policy that says there is 5% reservation of students with disability into the colleges or universities that exist. I just wanted to say that if you go a little flip it, where we say 5 to 10% of teachers are always available to students students with disability, that will make students with disability attend at colleges. So this is where we are trying to work with the government to get these kind of policies kind of included or amended going forward in the next coming years.
I think
And
the teacher training is something that's, I think, very important to build the ecosystem, the systemic space of bringing it. So you may have organizations that are ready to take the students in. You would need the teachers again with specific training, far more empathetic and patient to work with this, and the sign language aspects comes into play, and
Correct.
quite a lot of that. So that will enable that thought to move forward. Yes.
True.
Well, yeah, it's good what you say, a 5% reservation, and coming from the government side. I'm very curious to know what do you suggest that can be done to change the mindset of the society in general, because it's people from society who are going to work in the corporates and the government. So if they have a more empathetic outlook towards these children, these students, so what can be done on that front?
I say it's that I see 2-3 ways here to be done. One is very internal, where how can we improve our own quality, our own benchmarking, where it's from 3 lakh rupees per annum, which is the average salary, can I take up to 10 lakh rupees, and where? So this kind of notions, the journey of being a premier education institution will also reflect back, where people will start understanding, okay, these are the students who are can get into more of a leadership roles from here, and so that is which is internal focus, I will say. And from the external focus is more of advocacy from the government, for the government and for the companies to come in, is required to understand that this segment of population which is not visible, or is invisible, has an opportunity and has a talent to get into the formal employment or formal sector itself. So that advocacy at a mass level is critical for people to become aware of it. One of the suggestion came up, and still yet to be implemented, is introducing sign language in regular schools. So I think that will enable people to learn sign language. That why are we learning it? And that's how the question of why will make that child to go deeper, to understand that there are certain set of other children who are living along with me. So starting something from the mainstream schooling will also, from a childhood, will also enable the large, longer term societal changes.
Do you think having some kind of reservations for these children in premier schools would also make a difference?
I think definitely there. So though there are in premium schools there are not reservation kind of, but having certain reservation would help to get into the overall system and so on. But there are certain already reservation in public schools and so on for them. So reservation still exists, but it is about getting these parents access those schooling and so on.
Yeah.
Someone, I've not heard one word while you were sharing, and I'm curious about this in terms of how it sets in. How does entrepreneurship fit in with the students that move out of teacher? Because I've constantly heard campus placements. And I come from a space where I strongly believe that India needs to not look at being employed in somebody else's
Correct.
space, but to now become employers to others who are, with us. Just a wild thought that came to me saying,
No,
the word that I've not heard. So I'm just putting that thought here.
So correct. So I think what we spoke about is the first 9 years journey that we were talking about. And you're right. Like yesterday itself, when I was in the campus, and 100 plus students were presenting on business models,
Wow.
various different business models. So where the coming years journey is about building more and more entrepreneurs within the system as well, because one can give jobs to 10 more. That's what the entrepreneur can do. And getting my whole vision is in next 3 years we will be having an incubation cell. See, we started this journey with someone giving us a seed amount, incubating us, and so on. So that is what we want to give it back to certain set of ideas that our students or deaf students wants to bring in. And that is where this whole building entrepreneurs is critical. And that's how we will also be able to diversify careers. We don't want to stick into one single funnel of corporate placement and so on.
Yeah, because corporate, I think, is also undergoing its own challenges right now. And,
Correct. And that will skew us. That will create a bottleneck at a certain stage.
Yeah.
And that is where entrepreneurship is critical. And from this year onwards, we have started our journey towards building more of our entrepreneurial mindset within the student system.
And I think what's also picking up is the whole aspect of these skills around artistry, in terms of knitting, so on and so forth. And that could also be a space where it can scale
Correct.
places where they become solopreneurs. They're sort of engaging on their own, and it sort of creates a space. If I'm able to see somebody who is similar to me making a leap to something else, I also would look at it and say, oh, how can I do this? And so that's how these thoughts come by. And that was a question that was gnawing at me, saying, I've not heard this word. I wanted to hear that word.
Yeah.
And so
No, I think this is an important element, and this is something that can transform at a scale when getting more and more entrepreneurs out of it. But I would say for first 9 years, this was still an aspiration,
Mhm.
but couldn't put it to action. It had its own limitation and own journey. But the next 9 years is where this is a part of the strategy, and where we'll build this cell to only incubate certain set of ideas and entrepreneurs in the process.
Wow. This podcast is in a way making me look at this and saying, wow, at so many levels. In university for hard of hearing, 1 crore plus kids in India who are in that space of being hard of hearing and conversing, and introducing the sign language ecosystem and learning at schools. So, and I have maybe another curious question. So I've seen the Indian Sign Language space and the American Sign Language. Does it also come in vernacular variants, or is it only?
It does come. It does come under vernacular variant as well. And the best part is, my students have actually taught me sign language. So I remember it was their homework to me, that they will give it to me, that you should practice 10 words per day. And I was like, I will do that. And I will give you homework to learn this answer. And and diligently, both of us actually used to start learning together. So we removed that concept of a teacher only. We said, let's remove the concept of teacher, because I don't know much of the sign language. You don't know much of the subject. We both are same. Let's learn together.
Let's learn together. So you've brought in quite a few interesting concepts.
Yeah.
So, Aman, we've talked a lot about teach, about the challenges. There's one thing that's coming to my mind. You mentioned that you came from a home with very limited means, and you were the only one who was earning for your family. How difficult was it to make that decision?
I think
Because as
2 years I did this with a job in hand, 2016 to 2018 and a half. Wow. Now with 2 years with job in hand, my experience came in that and this is again an incident. I went to the classroom and debated myself, and we sat with certain set of teachers. And this was the first batch which we started in 2016, 2018 June. And next 6 months, that is February 2019, they were about to appear for 12th board. And teachers said that, we asked how many students will pass out of 23. They said only 50%. And at that moment, we were so much furious and shocked and surprised all together. That whole emotion came in together. And we realized that because our schedule was that morning 7 o'clock, I used to leave my place. 2 hours I used to travel to the teach center. Reach there by 9 o'clock. Till 1 o'clock, used to be there. Leave that, come back to the office from 2:30 to 11:30, be in the office, get completes the work. Me, Dipesh, Fonali was the other leadership team members. We used to sit, because we're in Mumbai, it's a happening place. So we figured out a cafe used to open at 2:30, 3 o'clock. We used to sit there, learn to make notes, used to make budgets, learn to raise fund. We did all the back end thing that until 2:30, 3 o'clock, and then took the office cab back home by 4 o'clock. And this was the schedule for the last 2 years. And when we heard this, that only 15% will pass, what the realization was that if, as a founders, one of us is not on the ground, this will collapse. And it is not the students who came to me. It was me who went to the students. So it was I who gave the commitment that I will do it for you. And that thing made me realize that I have to be full time. What has happened is, at that time, since I got married, fortunately, in February 2018. So with Sonali. And then 6 months was like, with that incident in June, July, I told that I'll be able to do one. And this is what I want to do. My parents were like, if your wife agree, we are okay. But someone has to support the family. And she agreed. She said, I'm okay. And that moment, still, parents were okay and were okay. And then I left without looking back. But my father has told me one thing, and I still remember it. He said this, कि अगर तू इधर जा रहा है, तो since you're taking this leap, पीछे के पुल जला देना. There's no looking back. Never look back. अगर आप पीछे देखोगे तो एक दिन आप वापस पीछे ही चले जाओगे. You'll go back. So पीछे के सारे पुल जला देना. Look, आपको यही रास्ता, यही करना है. And that made me so clear that may whatever it comes, I jumped on it without realizing what could happen, what will not. And then slowly, while on the job, on the fly, I started learning what could be done and what. And today, within this, today Dipesh is also full time. 3 years ago, he joined us full time. So now he's also full time. So we all have left the corporate job. We are doing this full time. We said, let's do this. It's once a life moment for us to build something. And if you're able to, and the strong, and at the end, imagine the worst scenario may come. If it comes, we will easily get jobs, but our students will not. So our thing is more responsible to get them a better job, to get them a better career. When it's about job, it's a career, it's a life that they need to get into. So that's how, Shirish, the whole moment has been.
That one particular advice that came from your father's tells all the story, fits all the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle. And you're very right. When you are into it fully, then obviously your approach, your focus also must have shifted. And that's where the things must have started going uphill.
Correct.
Yes,
Yeah,
Sunil.
I think I'm just sitting with that space saying, you don't look back and burn all your bridges, kind of a space. And the only place now is forward. And I think typically that's also a space in terms of my own journey that I was reflecting on, saying, hey, that's how I worked. And that possibly could be the only way of working when you're taking such a leap of faith. My follow-up question to that is, what drives you? Right? You can answer it in however you want to take it. Short answer for long answer.
I think it's a realization of a purpose in life. I have been fortunate that at the age of 25, 26 or whatever, I could realize that it was not the managing director that was a calling for me. It was these children, and then something that I could do for them is the calling for me. So that realization is something that drives me all the time. And I'll be very open with you all that when there have been days where it has been low, there have been days where I used to feel that, am I the right person to do this? It's all filled with self doubt. It's all of us, it's our journey. The single solution to it was all the time that I kept doing it. I used to go to the student classrooms and spend some time with them and have a chat with them, any random chat. And that made me fill that fuel up with it myself and get me back on that shoes at those to do something. So that's how, that's the motivation, or that's the way things come from.
Yeah, I think getting to sit with the children and then, I think absorbing that energy that exists, I think is fuel to go through with all tests that come through in life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
True.
but he's fulfilled his dream of being a managing director. The only difference is that instead of managing hundreds of crores, he's handling far more precious, something which is far more precious than those hundreds of crores.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it is so heartwarming and so enlightening in a way to say, okay, for us as individuals, we haven't looked at a particular sector of people and said, they also need to be acknowledged, they also need to be seen, and they also need to be in our radar of saying, hey, all inclusivity is there. And also the dream of saying, let's not look at it from a space of give them a skill that can now give them like basic day-to-day work, but to actually take them at a pace and scale where uh, they are, like I said, equal, right? They're part of equal to those that are hearing. So I think it's just been so inspiring to just sit on this side and sort of sneak peek on your 9 years of on the treadmill journey, right? So it's been so beautiful to keep this space going and maybe taking a leaf out of a few of the other podcasts that we've done. we usually ask the person who is the guest to give us a few questions that we can answer.
I think the question is, would you want to learn sign language?
I am absolutely happy to. So I know what it is. So I know this for sure is thank you, and that's the only thing I know. And possibly this is hi.
Now they clap.
That's the clap. So those two I know, but I've learned a few, but I don't remember. It's been quite a long time since I.
But I think during our introductory call as well, something I shared that how can we all, since it's a destiny that have made us meet. Though Gelda, Clint, it's a connect that has helped us to meet, but it's also this. It's all I feel it's a student's energy that has helped us to meet. And how can we leverage ourselves to do something better and greater for them? It could be putting up time, putting up our network to get them into better employment opportunities and so on. So I think this is something is as always an open discussion that I want to keep on being on the table.
Fantastic. So I am in. So whenever you want to teach us sign language, happy to learn.
Lovely.
Happy to learn and happy to coach and happy
Lovely.
to serve. Happy to mentor, whatever way it can.
Thank you, Shirish. I would love to have you in our campuses, any of Delhi, Mumbai, Pune,
Sure.
any of these campuses.
For sure.
Love to.
All right. So possibly I think we've come up to that stage where for this episode, we may have to pass this. There's a lot to explore in terms of how your students learn, what's been your journey, what's tested you so far, and the change that you spark in us today, and change that you sparked over the last 10 years and beyond. And the aspect in terms of the first university for those who are hard of hearing, and that too for not just in India but for the world, right? So we wish you the best in that space, and once again thank you for your time and gracing us with your presence today.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you, Aman. Thank you.
We can end a thank you in sign language. This is sign for thank you. Thank you.